From your right on time for Kirk Mid Morning, even as we seek to have a conversation, to educate you, inform you, and help you be part of our television. Good morning, Kenyans, and wherever you are watching us from, welcome aboard. This is Kirk Mid Morning. My name is Chris Sambo. I'm standing in for Faith Kaulu, who has not been able to, make it this morning for the Kirk Mid Morning. But all the same, we continue with our discussion this morning. And just to begin our conversation, I want just to introduce the topic of our discussion this morning. We'll be talking about leadership. What do you need to know about leadership? How can you become a good leader? That's a conversation we'll be having in the next 1 hour and some few minutes, even as we seek to educate you and put you in a good position to become a leader wherever you are watching us from. Remember, we are streaming live on Facebook at Kirk TV Kenya and at YouTube Kirk TV Kenya, so you can leave in your messages as we continue with the discussion and also be part of this conversation that is very crucial, the conversation of becoming a leader, or rather leadership in general. And allow me now to welcome my panelists here in studio. And on my near right is Bishop Dr. Geoffrey Njuguna, who is the senior pastor, Deliverance Church, Langata. Karibu sana, yes. Bishop.
Very glad to be here. This is the second time to be in your studio, and I'm glad to make it back today.
Glad to have you this morning as well. And Reverend Majido Cheng is also Deputy Senior Pastor, Nairobi Baptist Church. Karibu sana, Reverend, and welcome to Kirk Mid Morning.
Thank you very much, Chris. We are honored and privileged to be part of the Mid Morning show today, and to talk about a subject that I'm very passionate about, leadership, because as they normally say, everything rises and indeed falls with leadership.
Interesting. Let's begin at this perspective, because our viewers, they're watching us from home, and someone will be asking, where I go, people call me Kiongozi. Am I really a leader? We'll begin by, understanding who is a leader.
Yes, we have a lot of definitions about leadership from some of the authorities like John Maxwell, who says that leadership is influence. And if you call yourself a leader and you turned back and did not find anyone following you, consider you're taking a walk. You're not a leader, because a leader will attract followers because of what they stand for, the values they stand for. As we go into this discussion, one of the persons who strikes me as a very, very effective leader was actually Nehemiah. Nehemiah stands out. In fact, when I studied the book of Nehemiah, I developed it into a book. I've written a book, actually, that captures Nehemiah. And the book's title is The Moral Authority to Lead. And I've cited Nehemiah's style of leadership from the fact that he read in a very, very challenging time, and he was able to exemplify himself. And maybe as we continue, we might share a few things about his principles of leadership, which actually one of the key aspects about Nehemiah is his humility. And leaders who are humble and who can be able to not abuse their position because of pride or self-interest are very, very exemplary. And if you get those ones, you're really blessed. Because a lot of leadership, why a lot of people mess up, because sometimes people think about leadership as something that you can be given by being given a position. But if you have read the writings of someone like John Maxwell, in the hierarchy of leadership, position is the lowest. Position is when somebody just appoints you to a position, not because you earned it. But if you're a leader that commands respect, it means that you have gotten to a place in which you are commanding respect because of what you stand for, and people follow you because they have chosen to do so. Yeah.
Is talking about, would you add something on
Yeah. It is true. I fully agree because position then is very limiting.
Yeah.
It basically means then without position, your leadership is gone. But if it's indeed leadership by influence, then with or without position, you are still able to move on. As a matter of fact, when we talk about it as influence, it's you position yourself that you work with people, you walk with people, you do things like vision casting, that people out of their own volition, they will just want to follow. In fact, there is no coercion, if you prefer. So that people just follow because of the values and what you have instilled in them. Now, if it's only about position, then without position, your leadership stops. I normally say we are in a better place if we have been leading, and then when the position comes, that position comes just to affirm what you have already been doing. And if you look at even, as we began, I said that everything rises and falls on leadership. It's very key. Even if you look at, he's quoted Nehemiah, but even if you look at the way God worked, whenever God wanted to move people from one place to another, he looked for a leader. One of those cases is Moses. When the children of Israel were in slavery in Egypt and they needed to come out of that slavery, God looked for a Moses. Even when the entire humanity needed to have been saved, the ultimate leader is Jesus Christ. So God sends him to save mankind. So leadership is key. Everything rises and falls on leadership, Chris. Yes.
And talking about everything rising and falling on leadership, there is that correlation between, position and leadership, and the presumption that when someone is given a higher position, then they automatically become now the leader, and now people begin looking at them as leaders. But at the end of the day, you find in this regard, this person was just given that position, but they were not suitable to become a leader. That presumption of someone has been given a position on top of others, and then that is where they draw the line. They draw the line that I'm a leader, while we can see that in what they display, they are not leaders. What do you make of that presumption?
Yeah, it is. That's why sometimes you see this concept of everything rises and falls on leadership. There are people that have been somehow privileged, or they've been given positions. If they are good leaders, then you will see progress. You will see prosperity. You will see even peace. If they are not good leaders, you will see some retrogression. And that happens in organizations. That happens in churches. Sad to say, that happens also even in countries. And when you talk of presidents, and sometimes, sad to say once again, even in church. So we need to be aware and to be alert to the fact that it's not just a position. A position comes, and then we need to just build on the leadership qualities. And it's much better if someone has already been leading, you've seen them from one step to another, to another, to another, to another, so that when that position comes, then it is affirming that which they have been doing. If that chain is not followed, then we end up with a society, we end up with organizations. I'm sure, Chris, you have seen organizations that collapse.
Definitely.
You have seen countries that go bananas. You have seen, sometimes sad to say, churches that are struggling in one way or another. Why? Because either someone was elevated, and sad to say, sometimes as men, and let's just be honest, we elevate ourselves through cunning ways. And you find you're up there, and then you cannot perform, and then that becomes a challenge. Yes.
And talking about finding yourself up there while you cannot perform, what are the basics of leadership? What are the basics of leadership?
In my honest view, And of course, there's argument about whether leaders are made or leaders are born. And that has been a conversation a lot. But for me, I say, of course, all leaders are born because they must have been born. But in terms of development, I believe if you believe that God has called you to lead people, you have a personal responsibility to self-improve yourself by reading, by exposing yourself to other leaders. But in terms of what strikes me most, and of course I'd mention Nehemiah, and there's somebody that's been given about the kind of leader that Nehemiah was. First, he is described to have been a humble leader. Humility is something that lacks a lot, because it seems like when people are given leadership, some people allow that aspect of a leader to get into their heads. It's going to remind me, during our graduation, after we completed my master's at what is now International Leadership University, then it was NIST. We had a speaker from Uganda, and the graduation was at Sitam Valley Road. And there's something that person said that I will never forget. You know, there are things that people can say and just sit with you. And this man told us, please don't allow this degree that you are receiving today get into your head. I've never forgotten that. Because he said, a lot of people, they allow, if you are a leader, you allow that to get to your head. And then you become somebody who is puffed up, somebody who is thinking you can walk on the heads of everybody. Pride. You know, let me tell you, I feel, you know, when I think about leadership, like you said, there's leadership in church, leadership in the political scene, leadership everywhere. But sometimes I think about even in our country, not just within leadership in the politics, but also in the business world. You know, when I think about people who are seen as leaders, and then you can't see any humility at all. I mean, it's like they think that they are there because they deserved it, they were the best to be there. And I really pray that God will help us. Even pastors, sometimes you have come to discover, and I share it as a philosophy of my leadership. If you are the leader, you don't have to be reminding people you are the leader.
It's true.
You know, that you know, every time you stand there, you say, you know, I'm the senior pastor here, you know, or you know, I'm the bishop here. I mean, that's irrelevant. I mean, just be that leader.
Yes.
Do you understand? Everyone will recognize that. So when you talk about humility, there's a gentleman in the clergy platform that I've admired a lot, and he has gained a lot of respect among many because of his leadership example and what he has accomplished. Because again, you qualify your leadership because of the people that you are leading and the work you are leading and the achievement you have made. So there's a gentleman, and it's known to all of you, I'm sure you know, Apostle Kimani William. He's a kind of can be, though he doesn't use that name a lot, he's apostle, but could still be as bishop. But he leads Kingdom Seekers, but he also is the leader of the MBCI, and he is the director of the National Prayer Committee, which is led by Bishop Ileri. That man, through his humility, has touched God in a way that I think is very significant. And recently, when we were in Kasarani for a Thanksgiving, there's a message he brought which really, again, stuck with me about issues of God and glory, how we should be very careful not to want to share in God's glory because God is the one to be glorified. So, again, a simple young man grew up in the rank to be what he is today. Sometimes we are in meetings with him because he's a good friend of mine and we're in meetings. And if you are told that he is The man behind, I did 2 meetings with him, one in Nakuru and another one in Nanyuki. If he sat in the meeting, you cannot even think he's the one leading, because he would never do anything to betray that. But you and I know people in the church world that they would want people. In fact, there are people who would be so upset if you did not recognize them. They came into a meeting and you did not mention them.
With all their titles.
Oh, with all their titles. In fact, there are people like me, just because I've been ordained and I'm a bishop, that if somebody called me pastor, I'll be upset. Yet, pastoring is my function. I'm the senior pastor of the Rivers Church Langata.
Yes.
Why would I be upset because you call me pastor? So that's what I'm saying about humility. And I think we need to pray that God will give us humble leaders in the business world, in the corporate, in politics, and also in the church. People who don't want to draw attention to themselves. It's a big thing. And now that we have just even had elected new leaders, let's pray that they can remain humble. Because we say, and there's a word of God that says, there is nothing that I have that I have not received. Even leadership, you have received it. And we should also understand, if you are a leader today, it's not a permanent position.
Definitely.
Do you understand? You can be a leader today and tomorrow you may not be a leader. So whatever space of time you are going to be in that position, can you demonstrate humility? Can you demonstrate compassion? And all these things, there are things that characterize Nehemiah. Can you imagine somebody leaving the king's palace because he has been told that the walls of Jerusalem are broken down and they are in shatters? And he is saddened about that because of the state of the people. Again, I tell people, leadership is about trust. A trust between you, the leader, and the people you lead. And many of us betray that trust because we want to take advantage of people, try to lord it over them. And I've said, if you want, you can get anything from people if you can learn how to communicate with them. If you communicate them respectfully, if you communicate them in a way that you are seeking to persuade them, even at family. Leadership, and this is good because we are talking about leadership and we are inviting people to the Global Leadership Summit. I tell people, leadership is not just because you are leading a church or you are leading an organization. Even at family level.
It's true.
So leadership cuts across. You need to be a good leader even at home. So that's my view, that we must seriously think, how are we going to how the people who I lead, do they think that I'm only interested with them because of what they bring to me, or do I seek their welfare? Can you imagine? And sometimes we use the word, there are 2 words. There's a word where you can say being persuasive or being abrasive. If you are abrasive, you're going to disappoint people and people can even walk away from you. But if you are persuasive,
People listen to you.
People listen to you.
Definitely.
Thank you. And just as we go on, Dr. Njuguna, you've talked about leaders made or leaders born. And one day I had one of our leaders capture that very well. That all leaders are born. Great leaders are made.
You're right.
So we must be in a place that we are developing ourselves. But you've talked of qualities. Allow me just to mention 2 for now. One, a good leader must be a visionary.
Yes.
So that you somehow perceive where you are taking a people. You perceive, if it's in a nation, where is it that you want to take this nation? In fact, even Nehemiah that is talked about, the vision that God gave him was to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem because they were broken. So visionary leadership, once we know where people want to go, that becomes almost like the first step. So that you find yourself in a place and you know exactly where you want to take people. In fact, I think it's Bill Hybels who says that it's like moving people from here to there. Where there is a place that people desire and people are optimistic about. But here is a place that people are dissatisfied. Status quo. But there becomes a vision. that the leader is able to capture, and after capturing that, then he persuades, not being abrasive, the people that he's working with, so that together they can move towards that great vision. The second thing that I see, and definitely not just limited to those two, is one of the very key leadership leadership qualities that we need is actually character. Integrity issues. The Bible says that David shepherded them with integrity of heart and with skillful hands.
Skillful hands.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that character, you bring about issues of integrity, issues of transparency. Again, the challenge that you see with the leadership today, in the world today, especially in our part of the world, is where people, you get in there and you want to, first of all, step on others, but you also go through all sorts of ways so that it's about me, and we are mass, and we are mass, and we are mass, and we are mass. You see all sorts of immorality, especially when you are stepping on people. And that is not consistent with the leadership that God wants. So two things that are, in fact, three, he's talked about humility, added visionary, and the other one that I see is character, very key. Yes.
It is very interesting that he has mentioned the things that also are listed, because there's some of my reading has showed 6 leadership qualities Nehemiah possessed.
Yes.
The first one is humility.
Yes.
He was also compassionate.
Yes.
He was a visionary.
Yes.
And talks about the war like Reverend Majid has said. Then strength and courage.
Yes.
Then he was organized and he had integrity.
Yes.
Now, talking about the issue of strength and courage, again, you can never lead if you are fearful. Courage is so key. And when I think about people of courage, I think, you know, for example, my own bishop, who is known by many, Bishop Mark. Bishop Mark is a man given to courage. And sometimes I've challenged him because of certain things that he says, now, I believe this is what we need to do. But because of his courage and a clear focus, the way he has read in Deliverance Church was, there are things that we have done that I believe if it was not for his courage, we would not have done them. And he's not afraid. Sometimes he's subjected to criticism because of the positions he takes, especially when it comes to issues of political positioning, whatever. But my bishop is the kind of person, if he believes in something, he would not be afraid to stand out and say it. And many times, like now, you know very well, and we just have come from a season of politics. It was a very tough time because we knew that there were 2 mighty giants, one on this side, the other one on one side. And I remember a bishop in one of our meetings raising a concern about how the church should think about going to these votes because of what we believe is an interest for the church. And it's not easy when you're leading a team. You know, we are a church of diversity.
Definitely.
Our congregation, like for me all along, we are very diverse. And being in a cosmopolitan situation, and I knew too well. I had many people who are in Azimio, but I also knew I had people in Kenya Kwanza. And for me, I had to keep telling people, we are going into an election. Your vote, whoever you vote for, you are right. That's your constitutional right. Whoever I vote to, it's my constitutional right. One of the things I hope will happen in the future, and I've tried it because I'm an executive board of Evangelical Alliance. We went to a retreat and I told the brethren, this idea of hiding from each other is hurting us. And people share different opinions. I told them, one of the areas in which we are beat by the people within the Islamic faith is that they agree. You people support that candidate, and let us support this candidate. We don't know who will win, but whoever wins, our stake is safe. Do you understand? But we ourselves, as a church, we hide in neutrality. I'm neutral. But you know, in politics, there's nothing like neutrality. Even when you are saying you are neutral, you know where you are.
Yeah.
So my thinking is in the future, and I will keep talking about this. Maybe one day I will persuade people to understand. When it comes to election time, let us, and we see who are the potential leaders. Since we want the church interest to be safe, we agree. This group, tell us, if your position is there, we know you are there, and we bless you, do your best. Your people, you are this side, we bless you, do the best. But you are not there for your stomachs, you are there for the church. Then you agree another constituency of people. You will be neutral. Because in case we're going to need some reconciliation, you are the way to go.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why people find that difficult.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about a situation where, and I tell people, like about this election, had a lot of, even in our own church, I tried to do as much as possible, but there are people who are still aggrieved that there are people who are celebrating and others are mourning. It's sure enough. I mean, in any election, remember our election is by what we call, you know, by suffrage. You know, we vote the numbers. So, and I can tell people now or even future, there's no time we are all going to be together. That we are together. So we must learn how to go into elections knowing that my candidate may win or my candidate may lose, but Kenya is one. And the Bible says it is God who determined even our boundaries. You remember there's a time there was a threat of people wanting to divide Kenya. You know, it was in 2017 when some people had drawn an imaginary map of where we were going to divide.
Yeah.
So let's pray that God will help us. But more importantly, can we believe about leaders who are going to be humble, who are going to be compassionate, like Nehemiah says, who are going to be leaders given to vision, leaders who will be courageous, leaders of integrity. These are the things. And whether it is in the church, in the politics, in the corporate, these leaders will deliver. Who qualify the qualities we have mentioned. Yeah.
And just to add, because he was talking about the quality of leadership of courage.
Yeah.
And sometimes from our side,
Yeah.
it's not that we have it all,
Yeah.
but it's because of God who lives in us.
This is it.
In fact, someone says that courage is fear that has said its prayers.
I like that.
so that it's not that we have it all,
Yeah.
but we know who our God is.
Yeah.
I can assure you, when David was facing Goliath,
Yeah.
Goliath was very huge.
Oh,
and he
yeah.
was a small boy.
Yeah.
But what did David say? My God.
Yeah.
So you come in the name of, with all the weapons,
Yeah.
and the superiority
You are right,
of your
right.
weapons,
Yes.
but I come to you in the name of God.
Yeah.
So that courage for us as leaders, church leaders, it's not that we don't see things that we are always calm, but there are things that frighten us, and when we are frightened, we make our prayers to God, and God then gives us another perspective that we are able to face the circumstances. The other thing then, of course, on top of the leadership qualities that we are talking about, is then issues of competency. Issues of competency. If I am a doctor, okay, you and I'm a medical doctor for that matter. And you're giving me the field of being a farmer.
No,
it's a different thing. But the thing is, I can do the work of being a farmer, but I need to build my competency in that area. So that either I read, I associate with farmers, I learn so much about farming so that I'm able to be relevant in that particular area. So competency is another key thing that leaders need to always be developing. And the world is changing. The world is changing. We cannot settle where we were yesterday.
No.
I was joking to him the other day, not so long ago. Imagine if you are Kenya Post and Telecommunications, those who remember, and you are comfortable.
Yeah.
The world came with mobile phones.
Oh, yeah.
They are no longer telephone booths.
Yeah, things have changed.
Things have changed.
Oh.
But those that were quick to develop with times are doing well. The Safaricom's of this world.
Yeah.
So competencies which need to be developed. But Chris, allow me to mention that to learn more about these wonderful things that we are talking about, the Global Leadership Summit,
Yeah.
happening next week
Yeah.
at CITAM Karen, 3rd and 4th, where we'll be able to learn from world-class leaders, faculty, that bring some of these current issues that are affecting the society that leaders need to develop.
And before we proceed, we can just play that clip of what we expect in that leadership summit, so that we come back and talk about leadership and now the decision making, because that is a key area that we need to talk about in terms of leadership. So we can just take a look at what we expect from the leadership, the Global Leadership Summit that it will be coming up.
How many of you are ready to grow in your leadership?
Join thousands of growth-minded, change-driven men and women like you for the premier leadership gathering of 2022, the Global Leadership Summit, Thursday through Friday, 3rd and 4th November 2022 at CITAM Karen. The world-class speaker include Pastor Greg Groeschel, the GLS champion, Bob Iger, former CEO of the Walt Disney Company, Lindsay Schneider, entrepreneur named the youngest female billionaire in the USA, Reverend Callisto Odede, the presiding bishop of Christ is the Answers Ministry, Dr. Julius Kipngetich, the regional CEO, Jubilee Holdings Limited, Reverend Julian Kula, senior pastor, the Purpose Center Church, together with Dr. Stephen Mairori, regional director, GLS Eastern Africa. Other speakers include Dr. Kizi Shako, Stephanie Shang, Saha Heshemi, Andy Stanley, and many more. Guest artist will be Florence Mureithi. Summit fee is $2,500. Register now through paybill number 825-500. Account number GLS 2022. For more information, call 0722-490-325. Register now. The Global Leadership Summit. Voice your vision.
That is the Leadership Summit, the Global Leadership Summit that will be coming up, where matters like what we are talking about here will be discussed in full depth, and for people to understand where leadership, what leadership means and where it comes from. But even as we spare time, we'll talk about exactly what we expect out of that summit. But let's talk about, we were talking about the qualities of now being a good leader, but now there is also the aspect of, you are a leader and the decision making. We talked about people like Bishop Mark taking a position that this is the way we need to go, because that is the decision that they have made. In general, someone would be stuck as a leader, in terms of making a decision. You say you're leading a people that need you to make that decision, but you are stuck in that particular decision. For instance, now, how do you come out of that particular hardship of making a decision as a good leader, and to make a decision that will describe you as a leader that leads people in a good way?
Most leaders have learned the joy of collaborating with others. The Bible says, in a multitude of counselors, there is safety. The worst that can happen to a leader is to think they have the monopoly of wisdom. They are the know-it-all. You can't tell them. If you want to be a successful leader, surround yourself not with sycophants, but with people sometimes who can tell you, have you considered that? Do you understand? Because sometimes sycophants say, will not help you. In fact, I have found it very, very useful to think about the people you're going to put in your leadership, to be people of diversity, to be people who have strength that are a bit different than even yours, and sometimes just listening to them. And I've come to discover that if you listen to people very well, you gain wisdom in sometimes, like what you're talking about, decision. Because again, leadership is about managing change. Leadership is about making decisions when you have to make those decisions. But leadership is also about being able to see what others don't see. I think it's John Maxwell has also raised that aspect, that a leader sees beyond what other people are seeing. And like Bill Hybels said, you're trying to move from people from this point to that point, and you need to carry people with them. What you would really fail is if you think you can just be waking one morning and going and making an executive order. You know, the way we lead congregations, I can't lead by making orders. Because if people think that you are trying to rule over them and manipulate and control them, actually people in church, you can't get away with that. I know within a certain aspect of leadership, those places are there. And executive orders are given. We know leaders, especially when it comes to the position of president, I think there are certain powers that in the Constitution allow him to give a direction. Because again, there are certain responsibilities a leader cannot delegate. Just like if you are the father of your children, you can't delegate that.
Definitely.
Neither can you delegate your responsibility as a husband to your wife or whatever, in terms of that responsible leadership. So in my thinking, when you talk about decisions, leadership is about managing change, and managing change will require decisions. But what will help you at that time is who you have surrounded. And we have good examples. See, like during the reign of the late President Kibaki. Kibaki had what was called a kitchen cabinet of very, very prominent businessmen and entrepreneurs, but those people were not on the government payroll. But the president would have some coffee or tea with them in the evening and just listen to them. Not because they want anything from you. And I think I would really, really encourage anybody, including governors. If you're a governor of a county, please think about how you can get people who you know have demonstrated good leadership, good quality in terms of values, and just choose to be having some talk with them outside the camera and trying to leverage some of the things you're considering with them and seeking their opinion. The problem is if you become unilateral and you think you can just be waking up in the morning and saying, this is the way you must go, and it's either this, I'm not ready, this is not debatable. I mean, I don't see leaders succeeding that way.
Yeah. I think very right, Bishop. Chris, where the world has reached today, and where we talk about transformational leadership, and the generation that we see today, that transformational leadership only comes when there is a collegiate kind of leadership, an all-inclusive kind of leadership. And I want to think and to imagine very hard that even where there are executive orders, there are normally executive orders that you've gotten some advice from the advisors.
You're right.
Definitely.
So you're not just waking up and signing an executive order, but being advised by your inner circle, by your technocrats, so to speak. But also to add that because leadership is about decision making almost every single day, then a leader also needs to read widely and to be on top of the current affairs, and perhaps to know the historical developments of the issues that the decisions is being made about, so that we know the history, we know where we are, and because we had a vision, we know where God wants us to be. So you need to combine that with involving other people. We need to combine that, being alert to historical issues, to current affairs, and trusting God to be able to take us to the next level. I just need to add that I once heard, I don't know how this comes out, someone saying that when it comes to decision making,
a bad decision is better than no decision at all. Yeah, because a decision has to be made. You better make it and deal with the repercussions as opposed to keeping everyone wait and see, and the cost can be quite something. But above all, we must be in a place that we are involving others, the inner circle of a leader, but also to be on top and to be aware of what is happening around us. And now, of course, we talk about the global village. But yes, decision making is part of leadership.
It's very important to realize, though, regardless of how good you are as a leader, you have to have character.
Yeah.
It's Billy Graham who made a statement which I refer to from time to time. Billy Graham said, if you lost money, you have lost nothing. If you lost your health, you have lost something. But if you lose your character, you have lost everything.
Everything.
And I think when we talk about character in our context, in this country, it's very, very important for people to understand that your personal character is your personal responsibility. We are living in very volatile times. We've seen people we have seen broken marriages, which many times wound the children in very serious way. Because I used to tell men and women, I said, listen, your children want to see you both together. They don't care who is right or wrong. When you start fighting and you separate, you injure those children in untold ways. So when we think about people who are in leadership, one of the biggest challenges in this country, which we really have to pray that God will give us victory over, is alcohol abuse and drug abuse. Now, if you're a leader, there are certain things that you can do. Let's go back to our own president, who was celebrated more at his death than he was celebrated alive, Mwai Kibaki. Mwai Kibaki will go down in history, and to be honest, that this man made a mark in this nation that nobody can ignore. And what kind of man was this? When he came to power, he used to drink, but he stopped. How do you think? An adult, somebody who was known to be somebody who was drinking and even knew the blunt of alcohol he was drinking. But when he became president, he quit. And so most of the benefits we had with him is because he was sober all the time. And we thank God now we have a president who we know does not drink, and of course even his deputy has confessed the same. And let's pray that they can influence their teams, because we know some of their team members, we know them. So my prayer is that they can influence them, because leadership is by influence. Because when you drink and lose your normal focus and listening, it can be very scary. And I believe, some of the things that we suffered in the previous administration, many people think that maybe that was a challenge. And we still pray. And sometimes I tell people, I'm so glad that God still used, and there are things we shall forever celebrate that we saw President Uhuru achieved. And even if we have been left in debt, we are now enjoying this stadium where the Mashujaa Day was. That's a very near our church, very, very good work. And my prayer is even now, the military, there's so much that happened in the military. In the same Langata, they have a sports center they developed. From the barracks, the sports center, then Uhuru Gardens. Now there's something being done in Uhuru Park. One of the things I would like to appeal, even to the current administration, please don't keep our military guys in the barracks doing nothing. Let there be a change in registration in our parliament that gives the president the powers to engage the military guys, because we are not at war. They can withdraw and go back if we have to defend ourselves from an external aggressor. But what things are the way they are, suppose we give them something to do. See what they did in the Kisumu port. See, they were the ones involved. See what has happened at the Meat Pork Commission. That today, when you deliver your animals, within hours,
You're paid.
you are paid. So, and this is because of, again, character. Because what makes these military people, the way they behave and they are celebrated, and have had the privilege of pastoring people from the military, these disciplined forces are very good. And and that is what we should hope and pray for our country. The kind of things, sometimes there's a bad relationship between the military and the police because they see the police being so pedestrian, what they can call, they do things in a very, very, like they are not serious, pedestrian way. But they say, why can't they be more responsible? But I pray that there can be a way even when we can see an influence of police being trained to become more disciplined. Yeah. That's what I think. Now, let's go. I think we need to move because we need some time to talk about the Global Leadership Summit.
Definitely. So we can take a very short break and then we come back.
Yeah, that is
wanted to add something on it before we take a break?
No, you talked. We've talked about decision making. That's what we're talking about. That a leader needs to be decisive.
Yeah.
And of course, working with a team of people, being aware of current affairs, and of course, guided by God. Because as leaders wake up every single day, decisions are made every single minute in the life of a leader. So that is also a very key quality of leadership. But earlier on we had talked about character. He has talked about character as well. And I normally say it takes a lifetime to build a character. It can take a second to bring that character back. And you are lucky if you recover it back. More often than not, it is never recovered.
It's never recovered.
More often than not.
All right.
So we just pray that as we look at some of those key leadership qualities, that the Lord will help us. That the Lord will help us. And remember, one of the things that we are saying, leadership is not positions.
No.
So even in my family, before being a pastor, I am a leader. And my firstborn son, my younger children are looking up to him. So every single person of us, every single one of us, we are actually leading someone. Someone is always looking up
in one way or the other.
In one way or the other.
All right, I think that is a good place to take a very short commercial break and then we get back and talk about the Global
Leadership Summit.
Even as we conclude this conversation, hoping that people are getting informed wherever they are watching us from. Leave in your messages, be part of this conversation, and then we can sample your feedback in the second part of this program as we conclude. We are taking a very short commercial break, but don't go far away. Stay with us. We'll be right back in a short while.
Yeah.
kumcha Mungu Baba ndio chanzo cha hekima. Hekima inakusaidia na nini? Hekima inakusaidia kuwa na nguvu za kutoroka mateso. Hekima inakusaidia kuwa na maarifa ya kujimudu wakati wa taabu. Hekima inakusaidia kuweza kujibu wakati wowote utakapoulizwa swali. Hekima inahitajika saa hizi zaidi kuliko kingine chote ambacho tunaweza hitaji nyakati kama hizi. We need wisdom now more than anything else in this world.
Are you looking to grow your business? Kirk TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@kirktv.org or call 011 00 90 647.
All right, welcome back again in this conversation, Kirk Mid Morning, as we continue with our discussion here about leadership and the making of a good leader. And just as we come in for this particular session, I would love to read some of the feedback that has been coming in through our social media pages where we are streaming live. I can see ICM Kenya talks about is quoting a statement there by Reverend Majido Cheng, which talks about a good leader must be a visionary leader, and puts out the upcoming global leadership summit and says that everyone needs to be part of it. Of course, Charity Apollo talks about what she has grasped from the discussion, and humility is key in leadership. And then Muhia Wakandara says, I'm locked in, I'm still following the conversation. Good conversation on building good leaders. Thank you so much for that particular comment. And as well, there is a quote there by Reverend Bishop Dr. Njuguna, which talks about, if you are a leader, you don't have to remind people that you are a leader. I can see most people have been able to relate with that as well. Kiprotich Vincent, following from Kenyatta University, thank you so much. Beth Njao is saying that I'm watching from Embu East Parish. Such a good conversation this morning. And yet another quote there, leadership is key. Everything rises and falls on leadership. That is something that people also have related well with. And Kiprotich Vincent says, I'm enjoying the show. Thank you, Doctor, for your definition of what character is. I've been struggling to live up to my character because I couldn't define it as well. And thank you so much, Reverend Majido Cheng, for also contributing on building us as leaders. Those are some of the, the comments that are coming in about this conversation.
Yes.
Just before we talk about the global, leadership summit, there is in your interaction with leaders and in your interaction in practicing leadership, that is the mistakes, or rather the wrongdoings that are done by leaders. From you, just to begin with you, Bishop Njuguna, what would you say is the common, or rather the biggest mistakes that leaders make while, in their leadership practice?
I think one that stands out to me, which is very unfortunate, is failure of recognizing that your success is not something you have attained in a singular sense. There are people. And sometimes we fail as leaders to affirm the Timothys who I'm a Paul, I have some Timothys who make me shine. And sometimes it's very easy for you to want to take all the credit when you know that there are people who are helping you get there. And therefore, I think leaders need to be very deliberate to say that the reason that we are able to do this is because of the team aspect. Because teamwork if you have a functional team and you have people who have the qualities we are talking about, people who are organized, and again, when it comes to teamwork, you don't bring people with the same qualities. You have to bring the diverse qualities of what you need. And I think about, I would never been able to do what I've done in Deliverance Church Langata, except for the team that have made it happen. And it will be a big mistake for me to want to take the credit for what we have achieved as Deliverance Church Langata. Because there's no way, and that goes for everybody. If you go to, whether you go to Nairobi Baptist, they're able to do what they're doing because of the team. So I think one of the single mistakes that I sometimes see some leaders do is to want to take all the credit to themselves and ignore the people around them who makes it happen. Yeah, that's a common.
And for you, Jim?
Yeah, Chris, one of the things that happens with the leadership is that there is a sense in which leaders have some authority and power, delegated by people, and sometimes the higher you go, the more authority and power that we perceive to have, because you have authority and to make decisions on behalf of others, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. The bad thing is when that power is abused. And some of the worst atrocities that we have seen in this world is when leaders abuse
power.
A case in point is, look at what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. Okay. Because of the abuse of power. So because of one person abusing power and not using power properly, the whole world is held hostage. So leaders, we always need to know that what we have is God-given, a delegated authority, a delegated power, and needs to be handled responsibly. And part of it is working with a team, so that we are not making unilateral decisions. Ties in with several things that we've talked about. We've talked about issues of character. We've talked about issues of humility. When all those things are not checked, the resulting effect is the abuse of power and the abuse of authority. And you can see a lot of suffering, whether it's in an organization, whether it's in a family where a father is abusing the power, whether it's in a church, whether it's in nations, whether it's in the world. World wars, they've happened because of the abuse
of power.
Interesting. I think that is a good point to note, because I can also see messages starting to come in when you talk about the mistakes made by leaders. But let's talk about the Global Leadership Summit that is coming up in a few days. Beginning with you, Dr. Juguna, what do you expect of that summit, and what is it all about for past people that are watching us live on TV?
Well, I think it's very important to understand that this Global Leadership Summit, even if it's been hosted by the church, and we are glad to do so, is not just focusing on church leadership. The Global Leadership Summit is wholesome. The faculty that we put together come from the business community, and it's good to know that the genesis of the running of the Global Leadership Summit, which we have been running for more than 10 years, except now the COVID kind of gave us a real setback because the numbers went down, we were virtual, but the selection of the people who speak in this conference are very, very reputable, successful. In fact, this year, one of the ladies speaking is, of course, in a virtual platform, is somebody who is ranked to be very successful in the business world. And we would like to appeal to you to consider that the 2 days, if you can take leave, you will never regret that you took leave and you came to Sitam, Canon, and heard these speakers Some of them on the virtual platform, and others who will be there physically. One of the person who we're so glad has agreed to be part of the conversation and who will be closing the summit for us is Bishop Dr. J.B. Masinde, John Brown Masinde, who is a senior pastor of Deliverance Church Umoja and also the General Secretary of Deliverance Church International. And he is an amazing man. I believe that without any fear of contradiction, I think Bishop Masinde is one of the most profound teachers of the Word of God that we have, not just within this region, but even beyond this region. And when he comes, I'd like you can come and listen to him, and I'm sure you. And also we have Bishop Karisto Odede, our very own Bishop of Sitam, again a very, very outstanding Bible expositor. I will never forget when he was among the speakers in not Johannesburg, but it was Cape Town, South Africa, during the Lausanne conference. God uses Karisto in a very, very unique way when it comes to Bible exposition. And of course, we have our own director, Marori, will be involved in some of the management of the conference, and many others. Please come. You will not be disappointed. I want you to understand, I've been part of the leadership of the Global Leadership Summit for more than 10 years. We began at Nairobi Baptist, then we moved to Sitam Valley Road, and we have continued to evolve in a very tremendous way. And I can tell you, because of how I take it seriously, because it's good to lead by example, during the 2 days of the conference, not this year, not last year, for all the time, we close our offices and everybody attends the conference, including those people who are considered to be doing managerial jobs, or whatever they do. Even our housekeeping team, we are at the summit. And let me tell you, that has transformed Deliverance Church Langata. And if you want to know, you can come and visit with some of them, visit our church. And I encourage you, because I know it has worked for us, it can work for you. Come to the summit. It is the 3rd and the 4th of this month. It is next week, Thursday and Friday. Please, I make a passionate appeal to you. Spare that time to be a blessing to your family, to be a blessing to your company, to be a blessing in your church and whatever organization that you lead. That is my appeal.
Let's come to Majid.
Yeah. Thank you, Bishop Dr. Njuguna, and thank you, Chris, as well. A little history. The Global Leadership Summit started in a single church, Willow Creek Church in Chicago, in the USA, in the early 90s. And for 30 years, without fail, they've had the Global Leadership Summit that has spread across the globe, has actually reached over 100,000. As we talk this year, we are going to have over 100 countries. Some of the materials that we have even been translated in different languages. So it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I am the person that I am today. I speak the way I speak today because of the influence of the Global Leadership Summit. Our theme this year is actually Voice Your Vision. Interesting enough, we're talking about vision. And when you come, normally we do not spare anything. We want you to have a wow experience. Your life will not be the same. A wonderful worship experience led by our own Florence Mureithi. A wow experience. A time to learn from the best. The leaders in their own circles, in the business world, and as you have seen also in the churches. But also it's an opportunity to network with other leaders, to interact with other leaders, so that we get to know others, so that we get to grow with others. So may
You just make that choice to come. Block those 2 days so that you come. We have a wonderful time to know what is happening in the world today, the current trends in terms of leadership circles, so that we be relevant to our institutions, to our families, wherever it is that the Lord has placed us, because you have said leadership is influence. And if it is influence, all of us are leaders in our own rights, with or without positions. And I am sure you are going to have a wonderful time. We've made preparations because of COVID, as Dr. Njuguna said. We've not had an in-person attendance for the last 2020, 2021. So we are coming back with a bang. And please be ready for that wow experience.
All right, and even as we conclude, just in less than a minute, maybe what would be your final remarks, as well as, Majid, your final remarks, in less than 1 minute as we conclude.
My passionate appeal to all leaders, and I want to appeal particularly even for our political leaders. I know you are very busy, Parliament is in session, but I want to challenge you. If some of you within the political scene can find time to come and sit down, come with your security, but come and listen to principles that can completely transform you as a leader that is going to be compassionate, a leader that is caring, a leader that will take their calling more seriously, because the examples of the leaders that we are bringing to speak are exemplary. And you have the potential of being exemplary because you're willing to learn. Because again, good leaders also read and they learn. And that is why they continue to upscale their leadership effectiveness. Please come, and you will not be disappointed.
Majid, your final remarks?
Thank you. Mine is very simple. We have said it earlier, quoting one of our very good leaders, that all leaders are born. Great leaders are made. And we are giving you an opportunity to be made as a leader, to develop your skills as a leader, to develop your competencies as a leader from one of the best faculties. So come and have a wow experience with us. Thank you very much.
All right, and that is where we conclude this conversation, because I can see so many people have been able to learn one thing or the other. So Dogi's Kisu says, I'm locked in. I've been following the conversation. Such a great conversation this morning. Keep Rotich. Vincent, thank you so much for watching. You say that we've been enjoying the show, and you give thanks to both Dr. Bishop Njuguna and Reverend Majid Ocheng. Thank you so much. SCM also talks about we've had a great conversation. Charity Apollo, thank you so much for watching this particular conversation. Mohia Wakandara, always tuned in to follow up on what we are discussing this morning. Beth Njao is watching from Embu and says that is a good conversation. Thank you so much, all of you that have been sending your feedback. I cannot be able to sample all of them because there are too many, but for those that have been part of this conversation, thank you so much, hoping that you've been able to get transformed into understanding how you can become a good leader and how you will be a good leader in the future, because leadership starts from where you are. You do not need to wait for any other time to become a leader, but you begin from where you are. That is the conclusion of this particular discussion. And the reason we're having this discussion is because in a few days, next week on Thursday and Friday, there will be the Global Leadership Summit that will be at Sitam Karen, where you are being asked to be part of it, so that you can be able, to learn one or two things and also get to build yourself. And the biggest thing that you can do is invest in your character to become a leader, and that is what the Global Leadership Summit is up to build you to become a great leader. So we'll be letting you see what we expect of that as we conclude. My name is Chris Sambo. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Bishop Dr. Geoffrey Njuguna is also the senior pastor at the Deliverance Church Langata, and Reverend Majid Ocheng is also the deputy senior pastor at Nairobi Baptist Church. Thank you so much for making time this morning, and that is where we wind up our conversation. But this is what we expect at the Global Leadership Summit. Good morning.
Amen. All right.
Join thousands of growth-minded, change-driven men and women like you for the premier leadership gathering of 2022, the Global Leadership Summit, Thursday through Friday, 3rd and 4th November 2022 at CTAM Karen. The world-class speaker include Pastor Greg Groeschel, the GLS champion, Bob Iger, former CEO of the Walt Disney Company, Lindsay Schneider, entrepreneur named the youngest female billionaire in the USA, Reverend Callisto Odede, the presiding bishop of Christ is the Answers Ministry, Dr. Julius Kipngetich, the regional CEO, Jubilee Holdings Limited, Reverend Julian Kula, senior pastor, the Purpose Center Church, together with Dr. Stephen Mairori, regional director, GLS Eastern Africa. Other speakers include Dr. Kizi Shako, Stephanie Shang, Saha Heshemi, Andy Stanley, and many more. Guest artist will be Florence Mureithi. Summit fee is $2,500. Register now through paybill number 825-500. Account number GLS 2022. For more information, call 0722-490-325. Register now. The Global Leadership Summit. Voice your vision.